Hello, in this presentation we will compare QuickBooks Online versus QuickBooks Desktop. Hello, in this presentation we will set up customers and new customer balances into QuickBooks Online. We will have a comprehensive QuickBooks Online course soon, if not available yet. We also have a comprehensive Excel course which complements the QuickBooks courses and a QuickBooks Pro desktop version course you can find at the link below. Here we are within the dashboard. If you've been following along with us, we will be continuing with the Get Great Guitars problem. We will be entering customers. This is a new company file at this point. If you haven't been following along, that's okay. We will be entering new customer balances, multiple customers, and their customer balances. In order to do this, we're going to go from the dashboard here to the sales item. So we're on the left-hand side, and remember you have to have this icon open in order to get there. So if you click on this icon, and then we're going to go to sales because we sell things to customers. And then up top you want to make sure you're on the customers tab. So we are on the customers tab in the sales tab. Scrolling down, we could issue one customer at a time and add one customer at a time, or we could import a file. We're going to go ahead and import a file and enter this information into Excel, importing multiple files at one time. In order to see the sample file, we can select this drop down and we're going to construct this Excel file now. Here we are with Excel open. We're going to enter the data into the Excel worksheet and then upload that worksheet into QuickBooks. If you don't have Excel, you can try to do this with Google Docs and then save it as a CSV file. I believe it was a CSV file. That would be another option. If that isn't something available or is not working, then we could just enter these customers one by one as we go through it here. So we're only going to have 3 of them, so it won't be too bad either way we need to do it. I'm going to go down here and make this a little bit larger. We're on 100% right now. I'm going to make this bigger than 100%, something larger. How about 170? So we are at 170%. We are in cell A1. We're just going to type in the names first. So I'm going to put in the full name. So I'm going to just say name rather than first name and last name. Just type in the full name, company, and that's going to be our second. I'm hitting tab to go to the next cell. Then I'm saying tab. Cell 3, that's going to be the customer balance. And note that it's going to be over the cell once again. That's not too bad. It's okay. I can type in the cell. And then I'll just widen the cell later. I want to practice just being able to be okay with typing in a cell even though there's overlap, because that's going to be a little bit faster for us to do the data input. So we don't skip a cell. We're still here on D1 and we're going to type in the opening balance. Opening balance. Now let's do some formatting to these cells. I'm going to highlight all of those cells. I'm going to put my cursor on A so you see the drop down arrow. Select the left click and then scroll over to D or E. Then I want to format these and auto format them to whatever they need to be. So I'm going to put my cursor right between any of these cells so it looks like that, not like that, but like that, not but like that, and any of these in between any of these cells. And we double click and then it'll give us the format or the length that we need. Now these two I think are going to be a little bit longer. I'm going to need them to be larger than just the name because we're going to have an entire name that we will be putting into these two cells. Therefore, I'm going to highlight these two cells on A and B, and then I'm going to drag them to the left, just making them larger, just what I would think would be good enough space to enter the full name. So we're just going to drag this to the left, and there we have, that looks about, it's probably about maybe even a little bit larger. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to make these bold, just so they know when we upload that these are the headers rather than just the text. That will be the names of the actual names and companies and balances. These are the headers of the names and companies and balances. So I'm going to highlight all of those. We're going to go to the Home tab, Font Group, and Bold. That's all we really need. If you want to center it, sometimes that's nice. Go over here and center them. That's the Home tab, Alignment Group, Center. Then we can type in the names that we have. So we're going to say the first person is Anderson Guitars. I'm going to select tab to go to the right, and I'm just going to type the same thing here. So if the company is going to be the same, therefore I'm just going to copy this and paste it. So I right click, of course, and copy, right click in B2 and paste there. customer balance, we're going to have the balance that is due. Now, if this was a new customer and we hadn't been doing business before, would have no balance. But in this case, we have been doing business. We just haven't set up our QuickBooks file yet, and therefore are putting in those beginning balances. So we're going to say the beginning balance is going to be 5,000. I'm going to format this cell a bit differently because I do want to have a comma there and whatnot. So I'm going to put my cursor on this whole column to highlight that entire cell. Right click, and then we're going to go to the format cells. And I typically go to currency. I have brackets even though we don't need them if there's a negative number. And then I take off the $sign. We don't really need the $sign. 2 decimals for pennies, that's good. And then we'll select OK, which is down here. OK. There we have that. I'm going to change the name here a little bit. It's going to be opening balance as of date. So this is going to be the date that we're going to have these opening balance of. I'll make this a little bit wider, double clicking right in between these. There's the entire amount. So this is in essence the date that we're going to be putting this information in as of. Now our problem, we're going to be working as of 2021 being the first date that we start entering data into. Therefore, I want to put this in right before that date. So 12/31/00. And the rationale, once again, that should be actually 12/31/2020. And the rationale, once again, is that we want to have this information in there as of the first date before the date that we actually start entering data. Because when we start entering data, we want this to kind of wash out in terms of any journal entry that QuickBooks will have to do. The journal entry QuickBooks will have to do will be to increase this customer balance in accounts receivable and put the other side somewhere, possibly to undeposited revenue or opening balance equity. So we want that to all be done with and washed out by the time we start our new data input. Then we're going to have the next customer, which is going to be Jones Guitars. And I'm going to put the same thing for the company name. So I'm just going to copy and paste that, doing this a bit quicker now. We're going to put the amount, 7,500, tab, and the date of 12/31/2020, and enter. We then have one more customer that we will enter, and that's going to be Smith Guitars. And we're going to copy that over, right click and copy, and paste that into the company as well. Amount's going to be 8,000 that is owed to us as the point in time that we will be importing this. Same date, 12/31/2020. So here will be our information. We're going to go ahead and save this document now and this Excel document and then upload it, this Excel workbook. So we're going to go to the File tab. We're going to go to Save As, browsing the computer to see where we would like to put it. We have now located where we want to have it. I'm going to change the name now to from Book 1 to Customers. And note that it is a workbook file, meaning an Excel file, and that will be uploadable to the QuickBooks program. However, if you're using some other format and you wanted to change the format in terms of using, for example, Google Docs and wanted to try to change the format to a CSV file or something like that, this is the area that you can go through to make that adjustment. We're going to go ahead and save this and then close this. And then we'll upload this. We're back to QuickBooks here. Now I'm going to show you how do we get here one more time. So if I close this out, we're in the sales area on the left-hand side and customers up top. Then we're scrolling down and we're going to import a file. Now, of course, that file needs to be Excel or CSV. We have an Excel file now. Therefore, we will browse for that Excel file and upload that. Here is the Excel file right there. So we're going to upload this Excel file. We could select open. I'm just going to double click on it and that should upload the file. Then select this next thing or button. It should then turn green rather than light green, or it'll turn dark green, and we'll select next. Now we're just going to match up these items. So these are telling us what the potential categories are matching up to what we have input here. So we have, and if we open up the Excel file just to show this, make sure it is making sense. These are just going to be the header columns, and what we're doing is matching them up to our header columns. So the name should match up to the name so that the names here will fill up to the names. Company, company, customer balance, customer balance. And if our header file here, our header name, doesn't match up exactly to the input field within the QuickBooks, then we'll have to match those up manually. So name is matched up with name. That's good. Company is company. So we've got that correct. We haven't input an email address, phone number, mobile, fax. If we had all that information, we should include it and input it here. We're just going to do the minimum right now just to set up those balances. Those balances being what we're most concerned with for the financial statements. Of course, the contact information would be very important as well, just if we're tracking this information within this database system. So then we have the website, the street address, all the mailing address. We don't have that information, not required to import, however, good information to have. We do have an opening balance. Note they have opening balance and we put customer balance. It's still lining up the way it should, so that's okay. So it took this cell here, and this is an Excel, and matched it up with their cell of opening balance. And then we have the opening balance date, and we put that in as opening balance as of date, and they were able to figure that out as well and match that up. So we're going to go ahead and say next here. It looks good. And it's not liking the balances here, so let's check this out. Looks like it's just not liking the format of these items. So we've got the 7005 with the comma. If we just type in the number again, 7005, then it seems to accept that. So note that if we had a lot of customers that we were entering and we didn't have just 3 that we could just easily go in here and fix, we would want to adjust the files here back to just numbers, possibly just to a general. So if I go to the number up here and we take it back to general, that might be the best way to import it here rather than formatting it. And then the date format, this is a little bit more tricky because the date format is not exactly standard or at least for Excel, what they're looking for. They want it to be, rather than month, day, and year, they want it to be year and then month and then day. So I'm going to go through here and just update this within our 3 systems here. But if we wanted to change that in Excel before we were to import it, we can highlight the Excel for the date, right click, and go to format cells. And note if we go to the date, what we're looking for is something that starts with the year. And if we scroll down here, I don't see anything that is formatted in that way. So we'd have to go to the custom formatting down here, and then we would want to select one that had basically the year and then slash day and then, or I think it was month, and then slash day. And that would be the format we're looking for. And they may even want a dash instead of a slash. So we have a dash here. So this isn't really important unless this was an issue and you had a lot that you wanted to reformat, because we can go in and reformat these, but it would look something like that. Let's see if that gives us the format we want. We're going to say OK. And so this looks like the format that they are looking for, year and then month and then day. So then we can go back over here and update this information. So let's go back to QuickBooks, and I'm just going to type in this 8,000 here. And note, I'm actually going to change that amount too. It's 8,000. So I'm going to scroll back up here. We put 80. It should be 8,000. So I'm going to put 8,000 there. I'm going to scroll back over here. We're going to put 8,000 here. And then I'm going to change the format of these dates to 2020-12-31 and 2020-12-31. So that'll be the information. We have import is now highlighted as a dark green, looking like we can process or complete the import process. Let's do that now. So we will import, and here we have that information. So we've got these 3 customers, and we've got the opening balances. That's the bare minimum that we need in order to keep going forward. That's what's going to track for us within accounts receivable that these people owe us money. And that's what we need to go forward. Now note that when we do that, this is going to create something in accounts receivable, and QuickBooks is going to have to put another side to that somewhere else as well. So let's say, meaning there's going to have to be another account that will be affected by the fact that accounts receivable went up by these balances. Let's go to the reports and take a look at that. So we're going to go to the reports on this side, left-hand side, reports. Scrolling down, and we're looking for, let's try the balance sheet first, balance sheet report. And we're going to put the balance sheet report because we're working in the future. So we're going to make this as of 12/31/2020. 12/31/2020. That's when we entered this data for. We're going to go ahead and run the report. And so here we have the report, and now here's that 20,500 in accounts receivable. Note that we're still in balance, so that didn't throw us out of balance. We still have that amount in the total equity amount here. Why? Well, there's going to be something that happened in net income somehow, even though we didn't have any sales. And we had the opening balance equity, which is a funny account in and of itself. We will have to deal with those in the future, but we're going to deal with this now. And if we just double click on the receivable, or click on it one time here, then we'll be in the data. So here's the data that we have, 12/31/20, and it gives us our information that we have just entered in order to get to that amount. Now the reason we're running this as of, I'm going to go back here, going to go back to the report. The reason we're running this as of, and we entered this as of 12/31/2020 is because we will be actually entering the data, entering the new data as of 01/01/2021. So 01/01/21. If we change the dates to January 1st, 2021 to January 1st, 2021, then we'll run the report once again and see what we have here. So here we have the report. We still have the 20,500. We still have the 2,896. But when we scroll down to the equity section, that net income has now moved into retained earnings. That's really where we want it. We don't want it in net income as of the first date that we actually have operations. That's why we're entering this data the day before or the year before we actually start the data input. Let's see the same type of concept as we look at the profit and loss or income statement type report. So we'll go to reports here on the left-hand side, and we're going to go to profit and loss. So I'm going to just do the standard profit and loss report here. And we're going to run this one as of 12/31/20 and 12/31/20. And we will then run that report. So 12/31/2020 to 12/31/2020, run the report. And here we have this sales of 20,500. We didn't really have any sales. All we did was enter those beginning balances. That sales number then being generated, if we click on it, from these beginning balances we entered, which QuickBooks made an invoice for, even though we didn't make an invoice, assuming, of course, that we had those sales due to an invoice. So we're going to select the back here. So we're back to this report. And then, of course, if we go to the next day, if we go one more day up to January of the next year, January 1st, 2021 to January 1st, 2021, run the report. We don't have any information. That's the point. We don't want anything in the temporary accounts, in the income statement accounts, in the profit and loss accounts. We're going to go to a accounts receivable report now and go ahead and print that report out. So let's go back to reports down here. We're going to go to reports, and we're going to go to, let's try a customer balance and do a summary report. So we want a customer balance summary report. And here is our customer balance summary. And note that we don't really need to change the dates. This is as of a point in time. So we're going to say that's going to be the report. That's where we are at. We're going to practice exporting this report to Excel. So we will select the export. We're going to export to Excel here. And it'll just generate our Excel document. So we're going to open that up. We'll enable the editing and pull that up to the top, and it formats the title for us. It gives us the tab. It's formatted a little bit differently than the desktop version. It looks good, and so we will save this. So we're going to go to File, Save As, Browse to where we would like to put this report. I'm going to put it into a Excel Docs for 6, and this time I am going to keep it on the section 6, but I will keep the tab name this time. When we made this prior format, I was thinking we would put them all on one workbook, but which works great on the desktop version. The way the online version, it's a little bit more difficult to put them all on one workbook. So we're going to go ahead and save them as separate workbooks for now. And that's how to enter the customer balances and new customers and to export the report to Excel. Hello, in this presentation we're going to set up customers within QuickBooks 2018. Back to the QuickBooks file. We will be continuing on our problem with the Get Great Guitars. We have input some data in some prior videos, so if you want to start at that exact point in time, then you could restore the file. If you have access to the backup file, then you can go ahead and take that backup file, restore it, so that whether you did the prior information or not, you could start at the exact same point and see exactly what we're doing from this point forward. In order to do that, you would need the backup file, and then you would have to restore it as we've shown in a prior video. In essence, going to the File tab, going to Open or Restore, and then locating that backup file. If not, then we'll just practice updating our customers going forward, and you can see how that is done here. There's a few different ways we could do this, but we're going to start off going to the customers up top and getting to the customer center. So we're going to go to customer center. Note that you could also get there within the home tab down here. If you're in the home tab, go to customers. But if you go through the drop downs, that's usually somewhere you can do it universally. And that's, for me, the best way to do it then. So we'll go to the customer center. Here we are at the customer center. Now our goal here is, if we're starting out at a new company, to enter multiple customers at one time, assuming we have some customers that we will all want to enter at one point in time, and do that as easily as possible. In order to do that, we're going to hit the new customer and job icon drop down right here. And if we only had one customer, we would be here at the new customer. If we have a job, which we'll talk about later, we would go here. If we have multiple, add multiple customers, as we will do here, then this is the easiest way to do so, because we'll get this input screen that we have seen a similar screen before when looking at items. And that will give us our headers at the top, and we can then just put the information all in at one time in this format. Now, in order to do that, we're going to customize the headers again, because we're just going to put some basic information in here. We can put more or less information in the actual format, but however we want to set it up, we want to get these headers lined up exactly as the information that we have that we are then going to input. We're then going to select the customize columns up top in order to realign these columns. So we're going to say customize columns. And I'm going to customize the columns in accordance with this slide image over here. So we've got the name, the company name, the customer balance, and the opening balance. That's all we want at this point in time. And the main purpose of this at this point in time is to try to transfer, if we're already doing business, try to transfer mainly these beginning balances in there by customer, so that we can track the accounts receivable within our QuickBooks file. That's our main goal. So we'll select customize columns, and there we have it. Again, we got the name up top, then we want the company name. That looks good. And then all we want is the customer balance. We have all this other information here. We're not going to put it in at this time. We're just going to have the name and the company name for our 3 customers. You may want to keep some of this information, whatever information you need to input for your own purposes, first name, last name, the phone number, all that could be good information. We're going to keep it simple here, just putting in the beginning balances. Therefore, I'm going to remove this, remove this, remove this, remove this, main phone, remove all of this, and we're looking for the balances. Next, we would like to add the customer balance. So that's going to be over here on this side. Here's the customer balance there. We want to go ahead and add the customer balance. And then we want the date as well, the opening balance date. And here is the opening balance date. So we're going to go ahead and add that. Those are the 4 columns we're going to work with. So I'm going to select OK there. And then we have these 4 columns up top. That's what we need. And so we'll enter this information here. So we've got the name. I'm going to just enter the names and the information as it's given in the slide. Anderson Guitars. And we're going to say that we have no company name. I'll actually add a company name, Anderson Guitars. And then we're going to say that the balance is, according to our data here, 5,000. Now, if we leave the date, whatever the current date is, it probably will be okay, because we're not going to start entering the information until 2021. just to work in the future to keep everything in one point in time that's not in the current point in time, because we will have to be going over time here. And therefore, we're going to try to enter everything as of the end of the prior year, 12/31/20, and that's going to be the end of the prior year, and that'll give us the beginning balances when we start in January 1st, 2021. So that's what we're going to try to do here. Then we have Jones. Again, if you put the current date, it's not going to hurt, because it'll still be there all the way up till to the date that we actually use. But what we're thinking here is we're going to put everything in there as of the last day of the prior period before we're starting the records for the current period. Then we've got Jones Guitars, and that's going to be Jones Guitars, and they owe us $7,500 for the customers, same date, 12/31/20. And then we've got Smith Guitars, very original names, Smith Guitars, and we have 8,000, same date, 12/31/20 there as well. So that's all the information we're going to put. We have these three vendors that are three customers that owe us money at this point in time. We will go ahead and save the changes then. We have 3 new customer records. That's good. So we're going to say save that. And so there are our records. And so I'm going to close this. And when we go back here, we can see then that we have our 3 names here and the balances that are now due to us. So now all we're going to do is we can check that on the balance sheet just to see what is going on in terms of financial statements. And then we'll print out the customer report to just give us some idea of the report as we finish this up. Now note that we're using that beginning balance icon, so the books are going to have to do a journal entry in order to do that. So note what's happening here is we're saying people owe us money. The account meaning that people owe us money is called accounts receivable. So if we go to the balance sheet, we'll note that we should have the balance of the 8, the 5, the 7, 5 added up together on the balance sheet as of 12/31/2020, and then we should also have an aging account in terms of the receivable. So we can take a look at that. We're going to go to the reports up top. We're going to go to company and financial. We're going to scroll down to the balance sheet standard and see what we have. Now, of course, when we don't see anything, we get worried and we say, maybe it's a date problem. So we're going to put the date here, 12/31/20. And so there we have our receivable here. If we want to know what that receivable balance is, that $20,500, we can use the drill down item or the auto zoom item. And there's our 3 components right there. If we wanted to then adjust those, if these were not matching what we have here on the screen and you wanted to go to the data, we can zoom in once again to the source document. And note that it takes you to a source document, in this case, which is an invoice. Why would it do that? Because when we put in a beginning balance, we have to assume basically that an invoice was then generated. That's why people owe us money typically, meaning the type of form that for QuickBooks generates the accounts receivable is an invoice typically. So it's going to go to the invoice, not our multiple data input screen here when we drill down on this information. And note also that it's not putting the balance to sales, it's putting it into opening balance equity. So I'm gonna leave this. I'm gonna go back out to the balance sheet. And note, so we have accounts receivable here. We also have inventory, and those are 2 assets that we just put in without putting in a journal entry. And we know that assets have to equal liabilities plus equity. Or if we don't know that, just note that that's the accounting equation that QuickBooks must abide by. And for it to give us the ease of us not having to kind of know debits and credits, not having to do journal entries, QuickBooks is basically just throwing that stuff into a balancing account. So you note that we have net income here, or the equity section, including net income of $20,500 and an opening balance of $2,896. that net income is being generated from the other side of this receivable, and the opening balance was generated when we put the inventory in there. We may have to make an adjustment for that at the end of the time period, because we want to put that into one equity account. So note that the ease that QuickBooks gives us by entering these beginning balances is nice, but there's also a downside to it in that it's just going to force the other side of the journal entry, which in this case they put into net income or opening balance equity, which will roll into whatever account they're going to retained earnings or capital or opening balance equity. We're probably going to want to look at that and give a little more time in terms of what do we want that actually to be rolled into. Otherwise, our equity section could look a little bit messy. So we will deal with that later in this time period. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and close this. And you have modified the settings on the report. I'm going to say no for now. We're back here in the customer center. If you're not back here, you can go to the open item window. If you're not using this open item window, I would go to view and go to the open window list, and then you'll see this open item window, and you can toggle back and forth between your open windows, which is very useful. And or you can go to the customer center and then go back to your customer center here. Within here, we can see once again our individual balances. Would like to print a report with those individual balances. So in order to do that, we're going to go to the reports up at the top. We're going to go to the receivables report, customers and receivables, these being the customers and receivables. We've got the AR aging as we've seen before, the AR aging detail, the customer balance summary. We're going to look for the customer balance summary. We're just going to look at this one for now to see those balances and export that report to Excel. So here we have it. Note there's no date range here, so it's going to give us these balances as of the latest date. In this case, they gave it to us as of 12/31/20. That's what we want. That's what we're going to export to Excel. I'm going to export to the same worksheet that we used in a prior video. You can, if you want to export to a new worksheet, that's fine, just to show that just to show the data here. So this is how we could export it. We could print it as a PDF, or we could export it here. We will be exporting. We're going to create a new worksheet in the existing workbook. So we're going to select create new worksheet. But once the next screen pops up, we're not going to go into a new workbook, but put it into an existing workbook. Then I'm going to find that workbook by browsing, and hopefully I don't have too much of a mess here and we can find this thing. So we're going to scroll down to the Get Guitars. We're going to be in section 6, and I'm going to put this Excel sheet there. So I'm going to double click on that. That's the one we want. Going to go ahead and then export this item to the Excel sheet. It should then open up the Excel sheet and add the new tab. That new tab including this new information. There it is. Now I'm going to put this tab after this one. I'm just going to click on it and drag it over, and then we're going to name the tab. I'm just going to put customer balance for short. There's where I'm going to hold down Control and scroll up, or you can use this item down. Move this up a bit. This item down here, just to make it a little bigger so we can see it. That looks like the correct data, therefore I'm going to save it. It's already at the location I want. I'm going to say the following features cannot be saved in the macro-free workbook. Okay. I'm going to say that's okay. And then we have that information, going to close that up, and that is how we can enter the beginning balances in a new company for the customers that owe us money into the receivable account, and where that information will be shown on the balance sheet.